So, hello everyone. This is Sajid again from Discover Coworking. So, with me today, I have Sajani. She is the founder and CEO of Colombo Cooperative. It's a co-working space in Colombo, Sri Lanka. As when I first met her, I thought, she'll be perfect to come onto our show and talk more about her space in terms of, what made her open a co-working space. She lives in Seattle, and she's going to talk more about her background in terms of, and her journey into, the co-working and how she started the co-working space. And then, there will be more questions. With that, Sajani, thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, excited to be here.
So tell us more. I mean, I want to learn more about your space, your background, what took you back. I know you live in Seattle,
Yeah,
Colombo is pretty far, so fill
yeah.
us in.
Well, I was born and raised in Sri Lanka until I was 18 years old. And then I came to the States for university and I studied supply chain management. And then my career took me to Seattle and I had a small stint at Amazon and have been with Microsoft for about 3.5 years now. And, I left Sri Lanka the year the Civil War ended, right? So in 2009, May, the Civil War ended, and I left Sri Lanka and came to the States in August. So that was interesting to see when I went back that summer how different Sri Lanka was just within a year. And then I have been going back over the last 8 to 9 years, and I've just seen Sri Lanka flourish. At the same time, there are a lot of things that the diaspora, I think, can bring back from the experience that we have had from, pretty much growing up to be ourselves here as well. So that's kind of what inspired me. I saw so many cool people doing really cool things in Sri Lanka right now. But at the same time, there was no sense of collaboration or there was no sense of community. It was, like disconnected pieces of a puzzle. And I think when you put all of those together, there's something really powerful that comes about. So I was just thinking of how do I bring a community like that in Sri Lanka? How do I bring kind of my experience back there? But at the same time, also learn more from here in Seattle and the amazing experience I've had here. So when I was more brainstorming about it, I was like, okay, I want a space, I want a community. That kind of morphed into, oh, I guess that's going to be a co-working space. And so that's what morphed it in. So it started from a why of how do I give back and how do I bring all these awesome people who are doing cool things in Sri Lanka together. And then the answer to that was the co-working space. And here we are. Now we just started a week ago and it's super exciting.
Congrats, congrats. I mean, that's great. I love this. You and I have some parallels there,
Yes.
but but I mean, from time to time, you'll see me looking down. It's only because I'm taking notes so that I don't
Yes.
forget to ask you these questions.
No, and I am like moving my screen around everywhere. So
But
I know
that's
I'm
fine.
everywhere.
This is the way it should be. I mean, it should be a lively discussion. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So when you first decided, and you kind of, I guess, you shared with your friends and family, hey, I'm going to open a co-working space in Colombo. What was the initial reaction?
I actually didn't share much. What I did was me and my husband is in software engineering. So we just got back and we're like, okay, here is our why. We had just read this book, Find Your Why. And then which was great. I recommend for anyone to read it or listen to it. It's a long book, but it's worth it. And we just created an MVP website. We had no space. We didn't know how much it was going to cost. We just created a website that said, here is the name, it's Colombo Cooperative, here are our values. This is what I want to get out of it, what it is going to be. It's going to be really cool space. But more than that, we're going to focus on the community and bringing a community together. And we just put $10 on Facebook and advertised it. And we got like 400 signups on over like 2 weeks just for email subscribe, right? Like no one putting down a deposit or anything. Um, but that's where kind of it started saying, oh, wow, like I think people in Sri Lanka want something like this. And then we put in a link that said, okay, talk to us. And whenever they signed up, we sent an email saying, here, book a time slot and talk to us. And that's how we kind of learned what they wanted and what they were looking for. And it was really, really evident that the market has a gap for a really beautiful space and for a space where open minded people can come together and collaborate. There were obviously a lot of naysayers like, oh, people in Sri Lanka don't like to collaborate. It's very competitive. And I know as South Asians, yes, we have that. We are competitive. But I think it's time to change that because given the world is moving into a shared economy and shared ideas, and we are crowdsourcing everything, I think our region now needs to change our mindset a little and start collaborating, right? So what I have to say to all the naysayers who say, you know what, Sri Lanka's never going to change, I just want to say, we'll get there.
Cool. Thank you. I agree with you 200% on that. And I do not know, maybe you have read the book, The Lean Startup. I think
Yes,
you
I mean,
just,
just a little. Yeah.
but that's what it talks about, right?
Yeah,
Create a landing page, an MVP, see who signs up, and figure it out before you go open up a space. And I hope whoever is watching, before you go, whether whichever country you're in, before you sign up a commercial real estate, please go follow what Sajani did. I mean, it's amazing, right? Because with $10 or maybe like $50, you can figure out if there is a demand for it or not before you sign a space, build it all out, and then it's an empty space.
exactly. And it's not just for co-working, I think it's for any business. And how I knew I did this wrong was because I learned from the first time. First time I had a e-commerce space and an online store. And I did that out of wanting to do a business and not necessarily because there was a need for it, right? Because we know there's 1,001 e-commerce fashion online stores right now. And that's where I saw the difference of doing a business just because you do a business, whereas when you're doing a business and actually providing value to a market, there is a huge difference in the feedback you get
Yep.
from the two.
Thank you. Thank you. This is very valuable. And this is one of the reason, I love doing these interviews or discussion. I mean, whichever way you look at it, because not only you get to share the knowledge, plus I get to learn a lot firsthand.
Yeah.
Uh, so I have my own selfish reason as well. Cool. So now, okay, fine. You had your initial data that says, yes, there is a demand. What's next? Walk us through the journey. What did you do next?
Oh, the journey has been amazing. At the same time, it's been amazing. It's been really tough and it's really stressful. And I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs, first time entrepreneurs, especially when starting a tangible like workspace, or any like physical product also just don't understand or don't expect, or maybe I was naive, I didn't know. It came with a lot of stress about for an example, so we did this MVP in October, and then we started building our community and our email subscriber list until December. And in December I went to Sri Lanka and I was looking at spaces. And while that time that I was looking at spaces, when we were in Sri Lanka, my husband got dengue. For everyone who doesn't know what dengue is, it's a tropical mosquito-borne disease, which is very bad. So he was in hospital, and I was going and looking at spaces, and it was just a complete mess. And then, I rushed into a decision. I found a great location. It was beautiful. And I rushed into the decision of going into I signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, asking a landlord to hold the space for us. And we were negotiating over email, and there was just something that in my gut that said, okay, the space is amazing and I love the space, the view, everything, but there was just something that was not right. Like every single time I would see an email from my landlord, like my gut would sink. And I wish like I listened to all of those signs, like listen to your instinct, because the deal fell through, right? It didn't, and I lost some money actually in that deal as well. And we had signed all these conditions as to how the space would be ready by a certain date. That date slipped, and it kept slipping like twice. And some way or the other, we got into a really big disagreement, which is really bad to start a business relationship on as well. So both sides walked away from it. And I was actually super relieved. But at the same time, I had already communicated to members that I'm starting in April, right? This for some people who have really like been with us early on. And now I had to take a decision. I was like, okay, am I going to be really transparent with all my members of what happened, or am I going to hide this and just go? And then I went back. This is when having a set of values on your business, I think, is super important. Is in our values, we say honesty and transparency is a big thing for us. And that's exactly what I did. I sent an email out to, I think at this point, we had like 600 email subscribers, sent out to all 600 of them, said, guys, it's not going to happen because the landlord, the deal fell through, and now I'm back to square one. And but very, very soon after that, about 2 weeks after that, I found this other location that I had toured while I was there. And it's this beautiful space in Colombo. If you're ever there, just you have to go check it out because it's in the heart of Colombo. It has a beautiful ocean view. And we went ahead with that, and there was no issues in signing leases. Both sides had great understanding of what the lease is going to be, so much clarity, and that's when I knew, like, that was the right place for us, right? So a lot of stress going up and down, lots of lost sleep, and then I was doing P&Ls in my mind. I was like, okay, now I need 60% capacity. Okay, now I need like all the how much, because it's a lot of money going into this, right? And it's not like I'm super rich. I'm just bootstrapping this. So that's kind of been the journey, and I think that was the lowest point that we've hit so far. And that's just in 6-7 months of doing it. So I'm anticipating many more to come.
Okay, great. No, this is a great start. I mean, I think, you are applying some of the, how do you say, knowledge or lessons from the tech startup world and, applying it to co-working, which is, I think, quite amazing. Um, Great. So now, I take it since you moved early on to the US, you don't really have much work experience in Colombo, Sri Lanka. So now, obviously, you're here, you're building up the space, and you have to hire people. How did you manage that, or what did you do? Where did you recruit, and how did you run all those things?
Yeah, correct. I didn't have any experience working in Sri Lanka, actually. And a lot of people, again, it's a lot of some people like to be negative about a lot of things, but I like to stay positive. So they're like, oh, how are you gonna find a person from there? How are you gonna find a person who's like run a co-working space? Because that doesn't exist. And I think in Bangladesh or any of our countries, like, it's so new to the subcontinent that talent is hard to find in America or in the Western world. Just it's not possible to find a community manager in Sri Lanka. Because no one has really done that before, right? So what I focused on was not more than the experience. What I focused on was the potential and the values again that a person had. So I wanted to actually first focus on the community that we had built and see if anyone wants to join us from our community itself. Because there was a reason at the first point that they saw an ad or they saw our website and they signed up, is because they saw the aesthetic or they saw our values and they were interested in it, right? So I knew that the people who were signing up for our newsletters, to our emails, they some sort of had values or the same outlook in the world, the same way I was looking at it. So I reached out to our members first and said, guys, here's our community manager position that just opened up. And we got some great email applications through that. We also posted in all our social media because it's the same way our followers have a similar outlook on on life, on community, the way we do. And then I just hired my first community manager, actually, who's running it from there, and she found us through our social media. So she's the one. She had been following us since like very early stages, like 1-2 social posts, and she has also heard about us from word of mouth, and she applied and she didn't obviously have any community manager experience. She had marketing experience, but she had a passion about building community, a passion about business development, and a passion to like build something from ground up, which is what I needed. Happening on ground. So when I was in Sri Lanka, I interviewed her as in more of a conversation, and it was great chemistry. So we said, you know what, let's sign a contract and get started. So that was a good experience, but it was interesting because the formats of resumes and CVs are different in Sri Lanka, and you would know. In there was just a lot of new things that I had to learn about working in that country, in that culture, which is weird because I'm from there. But there's always learnings and different subtleties in geographies. So yeah, and then I had to learn a lot about what the labor laws are. So the best way I did that was I kind of outsourced everything I had no idea about. And that's what I tell any international entrepreneur, just outsource and get help as much as possible. So I asked from another friend, do you know any other people who do contracts and can teach me the labor laws and what I should be doing and what I should not be doing? So there was a consulting company who drafted the contract for us and who sat down with me and said, here are the laws, here are the EPF, ETF, they're like a little pension kind of funds in Sri Lanka, and here is how it works. So that was really, really a lot of good knowledge that I got from them.
Very nice. I guess it's better than getting an MBA. I do not know if you have an MBA or not,
I
but
don't yet.
I mean, when I look back, and I was thinking about this the other day, that, because I was at a point in life when I decided that, I would rather open a co-working space in Bangladesh versus, go to an MBA. I chose co-working space. And I look back and I think I still agree that, that was the best decision, right? Spending that money and getting the first-hand experience. But at the same time, I guess I missed out on the certificate as well as the network, right? The alumni network. But I think I can always build friends by going different channels. But the experience, the wealth of experience that you get, like, a different culture, how you adapt. And for Bangladesh, I know they still put photos on top of their resumes.
Yes, even in Sri Lanka, and they put their civil status.
I know.
They Yeah, I was like, so I'm looking at this resume and I'm like, I don't want to know whether you're married or not. That doesn't affect my decision on, whether I'm going to hire you, but it happens.
Yeah, and I've seen, like, it's also sometimes I would see religion mentioned there, and it's a borderline CV, not a resume, but I guess they're used very interchangeably, right? So,
Yes.
and I
But
think,
I agree with you with the MBA one. And that's the same fork I had also. So starting like when I at the start of this year and when I was starting thinking about this project was okay, all of this money that I'm going to put into build out to rent everything, that is my MBA fund. Um, and then I don't think like commercial space negotiations, HR, like hiring your first person, like all of this is a ridiculous wealth of knowledge. And I think we'll just have to compensate for our network through just being friendlier with people.
or through LinkedIn, one of those two.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Moving on. One thing I wanted to touch on, and I forgot to touch on. So, and this is actually going back to your MVP stage. So, you built an MVP. You invited people to the chat. And what are some of the questions you asked that helped you validate, whether you should do this or not? Can you
Yeah,
share?
initially, um, the biggest thing is like, why are you interested in this? And I would just give an introduction about our space and what we're trying to do is to build a community. And then I asked, how did you find us? Which was, mostly through social media. They found us and why they are interested in joining our space. And the biggest validation was there are no spaces, number one, or there are no spaces that instigate creativity or that inspire them, because every space that was available in Sri Lanka that was similar to a co-working space was not very well designed. It's not a place where you want to take a client to. And third was, especially, they do a lot of working from cafes, right? And so that was also another validation saying, and that actually helped me in pricing as well, in understanding, okay, how much do you usually spend at a cafe? And from my travels, I know, like, in rupees, a latte is about 600 rupees. In some of the places, that's about three, no, it's $3 or $4. And so the way I priced it was my lowest package, my flex packages, um, is pretty much like getting a latte a day, which, is now I'm giving you a more affordable workspace in actually a productive environment rather than a noisy, social environment. So those are kind of the questions I asked as to, what is the need? Why do you want to join our space? And the answers we got were, there are no spaces, there are no great places, and also there are no networking. Um, there's not a lot of networking that happens in the spaces that exist right now. There was only like two spaces in Colombo, and there's no real networking that happens. And so that's where how we're going to focus a lot on community networking as well as bringing outside people in, and that's just a part of us giving value back to our membership.
Thank you, and that's very helpful. I have so many questions. I'm just trying to figure out what should be my next question. I feel like this interview is gonna run forever, but I need to, kind of,
Yeah.
time box it. So, okay, cool. Let's move on to the walk us through your space. Describe your
Mhm.
space. I've seen some of the photos on the website. I take it that's how the space looks like.
Yeah.
For
We've now updated with our inspo pictures to actually our real pictures as of last week.
Okay, so please walk us through. Describe your space quickly,
Yeah,
and then I'll jump into the next question.
cool. So when I was have I created with a Pinterest board, like I think a lot of us do, is, got went to Pinterest, made a vision board for what I want the space to look like, right? I wanted a lot of greenery in the space, and this began before I found a location. Because your space shouldn't be really location dependent, of what you want it to feel and look like. So the vision for the co-working space actually started way before I found a space, way before I started looking for a space. I just started going through pictures and pinning what I wanted it to look like. So I wanted it to be very collaborative, and I knew that this was going to be a point that everyone comes and asks me for more office space, and it would have been more profitable for me to create more office space. But I went and stuck to our original mission of creating a community and a collaborative community, which means that I needed more open space. So we have, as you enter, you'll just see a lot of greenery in wall colors, as well as plants. We have a lot of tropical plants because we're in Sri Lanka, we're an island, let's make it fun. And we have three private office spaces, and one conference room. We also have a lounge area with just straight looking at the ocean, and a swing, because I have a swing at home and I just love it. It's like where I do my best thinking. And especially in the summertime, it's just super fun. So we have a swing, we have a lounge area that was just playful, fun colors. And the color palette I was going for was cognacs, greens, some like subtle grays and pinks. And we have about 30 spaces that are your dedicated desks. So it is the desk that you come back to all the time. And we have some collaborative and community tables that are by the kitchen. And we have a small kitchen so that you can have lunch and make coffee and, have just coffee chats with your coworkers. So that's kind of a little bit about the space.
How about event space? Do you have any event space, or is that the community table that?
Yeah, we don't have a dedicated event space because I was bootstrapping this. I started with a 3,000 square foot space, which doesn't give me a lot of dedicated event spaces. But we had like a small 2, 3 events already in the last 2 weeks. And what we have utilized is our lounge space. And in the future, like we are actually partnering with Google Business Groups Sri Lanka. In the next 2 weeks, we are having some workshops about like growth hacking, and what we are going to do is we've talked to our members and we are going to use some of the dedicated desk spaces that are not taken up yet to host those workshops. So those are kind of the for the bigger workshops. That's about 30 people that's coming for that workshops. And then if you have any smaller workshops, we'll have it in our conference room, which can sit about 10 to 15 people.
Fabulous. Now, and from a design standpoint, did you use an architect, or did you do it by yourself? Because I think going into a co-working design, you want to, I guess I'm sure you were pulling hairs and trying to figure out how many desks, how many bathrooms, conference room size, where to put the cabinets,
Yes,
things you
yes,
think
no.
we take for granted pops
Yeah.
up. So tell me that.
Yeah, no, it was a really interesting story of how I found my interior designers. Again, it was from our website, and they saw what our design inspiration was. Because up until very recently, we just had said, this is our design inspiration. And actually, my interior designers reached out to me, and I thought that was a really great dynamic to have because you're not going and finding people to fit to your mold. But when there are people who say, I love what you're thinking about, and I think I can help you here, I think that's a great relationship to have. So actually, yes, I found these interior designers through our website, and they reached out to me and said, "I saw your design inspiration. We want to do something like this. We are actually just starting our own company, and we would love to be a part of it." So that's how I found them, and it was just great. And they were really good at taking my vision and putting all the technical aspects to it, right? Because I they did all of the drawings for the tables. One thing in Sri Lanka is that it's very, very, very expensive to get anything done or anything imported because everything is 300% taxed. So I didn't have the luxury of getting things from China, where would have been, more affordable. We had to make everything because that was the more economical way to go. So they did all of the furniture drawings, and they were just really great at looking at my vision board and understanding how to make it fit to that space. So I definitely had help then. They were awesome.
Fabulous. Thank you. Now let's move on to the next topic I have written down here is marketing. I'm sure on day one you had some members, and continuing on, how are you marketing your space? How are people hearing about it in addition to events?
hmm a lot of marketing, and I was very um, mindful about this from the very beginning, is I wanted it to be word of mouth from friends and referrals as well as social media, because I think that might be that it grows slower than what you anticipated, but it brings in members who truly want to be there and who truly fit the values that you're going for. Because if your friend works here and they love it, they will bring more friends who want to work together, and that just creates a great dynamic in the co-working space itself. So we began with just social media, and putting like small dollars into Facebook advertising and Instagram advertising, and then our email subscribers. And the other marketing strategy that we are going forward with is referrals, like I said. So for an example, if you refer someone to our space, you get I forget exactly what our policy is, but 15% off that value for the next month on your membership.
Yes.
So that's kind of how the referral system works for us. And so far, we had about 10 members on day one, and which was like three more than what my goal was. And then, and in the last week, we've grown to about like 20 or 25 now, and it's all word of mouth. And I haven't actually put any like newspaper ads or anything, because that's a big prominent form of advertising in in Sri Lanka, but that's not how I want to grow. And we've had a lot of events, just two events actually in the last week that we've been open, and that has brought in a lot of people who have posted more about our space, and that have created more awareness. So that's kind of organically that we're trying to grow as well.
Fabulous. So, how many people do you have in the space in terms of working for you? It's just the community manager, or do you have other staff as well?
So far, I only have the community manager on like my payroll. What I do is outsource, like, our cleaning stuff is outsourced as well, but we just have one, and that's it.
Okay. And are you open 24/7, or is it just like 9 to
No,
5?
no, we are going to be open 24/7 this month because my access system is taking some time to come to me.
Okay.
But once we have that open, it will be automated. But right now, if members want to stay late, they just have to let us know, and we'll lock up afterwards. But 24/7 starting like July with no with automated access.
So, who are these members? I mean, what do they do? What's drawing them into a space like this? Besides, what were the challenges they were facing before
Yeah.
Colombo Cooperative?
Cooperative, yeah. We have a British gentleman who found us, and he runs a tech recruiting company that is international, and he just moved to Sri Lanka. We also have a travel agent who works from us, and travel is a big business in Sri Lanka right now, and is booming. So he's in that space. We also have members in the event planning space. So that has been super exciting. We have people in research spaces, in the research space that is trying to work in nonprofits and in mental health. We also have members from IT outsourcing. They develop apps and software platforms for international clients. And it's a Swedish company that is just grown from 2 to 5 people, and they're just starting. We also have an online HR system that is just starting up in Sri Lanka. So a lot of people who are event, travel, and IT, and then research. So we have a diverse group right now, which is awesome.
Very nice. And
Oh,
how?
and sorry, to
Sorry,
go
go
to your
ahead.
second part of the question, why are they coming to us?
Yes.
The biggest thing again has been the sense of design, where it is a nice place to come to work and have meetings and bring in their clients. And the second space is they believe in the fact that we believe in community and networking. And that is a big thing that they have identified as well that will help them in growing their business. So those are the two biggest reasons we see them coming over to us from other co-working spaces, actually.
Very nice. I love what you are doing so far.
Thank you.
Let's talk about management, as in not your management style, but management of the space in terms of billing, things like that. Are you using any system, or are you using Excel? Where are you?
No, I had to be, and I think you might understand this as well, especially because we are remote founders and remote CEOs. We need to automate things as much as possible, right? So I know, we were both at the conference in 2 3 weeks ago, and they showed this chart of co-working space automation and
Yes.
technology adoption,
Yes.
right? And I was looking at it, and we are at stage 3 already, even though I don't even have 100 members, which was the goal to have at stage 3. Because we have Nexodus that we have integrated, and just because everything that is the platform that integrates with a lot of different systems, and it helps me in monitoring, the check-ins, checkouts, managing the invoices and automated billing. So that's how I have gone with the automation and the system from the back end. Just because it's so much easier as a remote CEO or owner of a co-working space, you have to have those points of automation in place already, else it's just going to be crazy admin hell. And you won't have control over your own co-working space.
So I'm guilty of that. I'll raise my hand and I will say I started off with a Google spreadsheet, right?
Yeah.
It worked well up to a
Yeah.
point, and then things went like blah, like
Yeah.
it's out of. So I made that mistake. I will be very frank about it.
Yes. So, and you're in a system now?
Yes, I am. We ended up doing our own system just
Oh, you're in
because.
stage 4.
Well, there is a reason for that. See, what happens is like in a commercial, the COTS does not work really well in Bangladesh because most of our members pay in cash. That's one. It's a very cash-based society. I do not know how it is in Sri Lanka. And number two is we cannot process credit cards like international credit cards. We can process the local credit cards. Now, if we were to do that, then none of those softwares will work and integrate because they do either Stripe or PayPal or something like that. So it was just like one of those choices. I was like, and
Yeah.
Bangladesh, you can get something built pretty, within a decent cost. So I mean, that works just for us. It may not scale to that level, and actually, we are right now talking to building something better. We'll see how that works out. But for now, we had no choice.
Yeah.
We were stuck.
Yeah.
Cool. So, do people pay you in cash at all, or
We just had our first cash customer.
okay, cash is
Yeah,
king.
so cash is king in developing countries. It's good thing and a bad thing. It is because the reason why I wanted an automated thing was I didn't want customers to think about paying me, right? And I want it to be as seamless as possible. I don't want to be chasing customers for payments. Um, so that's the reason why I went with the credit card forward aspect. And we encourage people to do credit or debit as much as possible. But in the case that customers, again, they have to pay those transaction fees. It's 2.5%. If they don't want to stay away from that, we welcome cash for sure.
Yeah, I'll tell you. With cash, we one of the challenge was, and I still is like the on the 10th, by the 7th or the 10th of the month, you end up with all this cash, right?
Yeah.
And you put it in the bank, and then it's hard as well. People lose cash, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my staff. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's not about. I'm not going to talk about money, but let's move on. What else should I ask you? So, what's your next plan? What's your next step?
I'm focusing right now on, building out the community. I want in the next 6 months to build a kick-ass community of people and get the co-working space to a sustainable model. And then after that, I actually want to create a value-based business model as well to go along with the co-working space. It is super hard to find services in Sri Lanka, and I think it's a thing everywhere in our countries, right? It's a lot of word of mouth. There is no directories, or here we can just go to Yelp and be like, oh, that restaurant's great. It's starting out there, but I want to create a space where for any startup, where you come, you plug and play, and we'll take care of everything. We'll take care of your marketing. We'll take care of connecting you with the lawyers, so that you can focus on your startup and not the admin stuff of it. So that's kind of my goal for in 6 months to create that network of support and admin for the startup community in Sri Lanka.
Fabulous. Now, you were in Seattle, spaces in Sri Lanka. So, what does your typical day look like?
Good question. So I start work, my corporate job. I start work around 8. It's great. I have that's the great thing about working in tech, right? There's no clock in, clock out. So generally, I focus on work from 8 to 5 or 6, which is great because that's around the time that Sri Lanka is waking up. So I get to go home, have dinner around 6:37. I'm back online, and then 7:38 I start calls with my community manager, or I start doing all of the things that I have to create social media strategy, or what are we going to do, the events and making those connections with co-ops. So right now I take a role of bringing the ecosystem together, of connecting ourselves with other entrepreneurs and venture capitalists and incubators in Sri Lanka. So a lot of my time is focused on that right now. And so 7 to 11, 12, I'm like on that, doing all of the work. And I wake up around 6:30, check emails, back work at 8. So yeah, no life right now.
Well, you answered my question because I was gonna, and I didn't mean to poke you at that, but I just was curious.
Yeah.
Are you also going through that whole entrepreneurial life, which is no social life, no sleep, no
Yeah.
family life, just run?
Just run.
Yes.
And family life, which is actually awesome because I drag my husband with it on everything I do. So it's not fun right now. I was like, babe, do you want to do some website stuff? And that's how we spend our time. So we have to be, again, like, especially if you're working with your spouse, have to be very careful in terms of, how do you manage that relationship. So and we made this mistake. We went like weeks without doing anything fun. And then we were like, we haven't done anything fun or taken some time for the two of us for a long time. So now on Fridays, we make sure that, we either do date night, or we, just dedicate time that is not working to you. And then, we work out together and just things like that to squeeze in some time. So, you have some sort of balance in that.
That's great. So now, are you still like for someone? I'm switching topic
Hmm.
by the way. Just for members who wants to join, do you do any screening? Do you interview them, or do you just allow them to join directly? And who does that?
We don't interview or screen. We do talk to them and say what their priorities are, what are they going to work on in the space, and we just want to make sure that not a lot of competing companies are in the same space, because then that hinders collaboration as well. But there's no formal process of screening, and just because I didn't want to create any sort of. We've said this is a space for everyone who is working on something cool, and that we want to stay true to that and be open. But in my code of conduct, I have said, like, if you are doing anything illegal, you are not treating our members right. That's kind of a zero tolerance policy we have. You have to be respectful for all our members, and I have the right as Colombo Cooperative to, terminate our contract as immediately. Yeah,
I hope that day never comes.
hopefully.
I hope so.
Have you had to do that at all?
Yes,
Oh,
very, very painful. I think so far I mean, I don't want to turn this into my, how would I say, therapy session, but early on, we had to ask this member to leave. Actually, they were brothers, and they refused to follow process. Uh, I still remember because we were still like not full. Early on, we were like really like having our fingers crossed and praying every day that we get more members, right?
yeah.
Obviously. And unlike you, I think I went a little bit head first more. Like
Mhm.
uh, if looking back, I think I took Reid Hoffman's, that whole thing. He says, "Jump off a cliff. Entrepreneurs jump off a cliff and build a parachute on the way down." I think that's what I did, right? And I
Mhm.
didn't know that 4 years ago. So, but these two brothers, they were very disruptive. Okay.
Mm.
So what happened was, and my team was telling me, what do we do? My thing was ask them to leave. But it took me an hour. I sat in the conference room an hour to decide, do I really, they're paying us and they're paying us good money every month on time, but at the same time and we don't have enough members, do I ask them to leave? And once we ask them to leave, what do we do? Because they're going to go out and talk and they're going to spread bad things, that's for sure. But I had a boss and a mentor, and he was my mentor as well. He still is. He always told me do the right thing, no matter what.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just followed that advice, I did the right thing, what's best for the business, and I bit the bullet and asked him to
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
And everything else happened, and we're still in business, but
Yeah.
it was painful
Exactly.
initially.
It is, and it's like anything, right? Severing a relationship because you have a relationship with each and every one of your members, whatever form it is, and that must have been super hard, especially when you're new and every dollar, every rupee, everything counts, right? So yeah,
It's more than the money. I think it's like you touched on, like it's a personal relationship, right? I mean,
yeah,
because I know these brothers, right? From the day I went back to Bangladesh, I landed on the ground, from my first pitching contest, they were there, so I've known them. I do not know why they became so hostile and why they behaved the way they did, but humans change. However, it was extremely difficult. Like you were saying, it's a severing a relationship. It's not just money. And we are not in a business of money. Money is secondary. I think we are in a business of relationship where, and we connect. And I'm terrible in breaking up. I'm very
in
bad in.
general.
So it was very painful for me. Like let's just say
Yeah,
that way.
yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think those are some of the stuff I wanted to touch with you. I don't have anything else. I know we are running out of time. I do
yeah.
not know if you want to share anything else or if you want to ask me anything else, or you already did. Very.
No, I would love to. I have so much to ask you because you did this 4 years ago in our similar cultures, in, similar economic environment. And so what do you think is the biggest challenge that I should brace myself for?
So I think Bangladesh is a very price sensitive market. I have
Mhm,
not been to Colombo. I have not been
mhm,
to Sri Lanka, so I do not know how it is. But Bangladesh is very price sensitive, right? So money matters, factors, right? And obviously, and I think you're compensating that through design, through all this, other things that you're bringing in, and that kind of creates a value. So that's great. I think one thing you will want, I would say, is look out for conflicts or misunderstandings. As your number of members grow, I think we had those issues, we had those challenges as well. And no matter what conferences I go to, I've been to many conferences, co-working conferences, and no one really talks about the stuff. They're talking about like the future vision. Okay, the health is the new black. I am not poking fun at anyone, but you know what? I would like to go to a conference and talk more about these things, the day-to-day operations, challenges, and one thing we are humans, so there is obviously some people's we like, some people's we don't dislike, and you will say something to me, and I will take it a very different way just because I'm having a bad day, and
mhm,
thereby starts a conflict. And we had that very recently, and that actually created a big mess, right?
mhm.
A
Yeah,
member was talking to another member, and they were referring to something else, and they were like, bitching about it,
yeah,
and he thought they were talking about him, and it just like I was on a plane actually, and and he was posting it on our Facebook group, and I was like, what the hell?
yeah,
It was like a big mess.
yeah.
So, but I'm not scaring you, but I'm saying, because we are, again, like I said, we are in a relationship business, right?
Mhm,
It's a hospitality kind of business. So when people work next to each other, again, culture matters. Bangladesh culture is very different. Like as you touched on it as well, people are not very open. It's taking time.
mhm.
So it's just big misunderstanding, but however, the damage is done, right?
Yeah,
There is a
yeah,
fracture, there is a crack in that whole community, and then how do you recover from it? And I will tell you, we are still recovering from it because that
mhm.
happened back in February, and I still am going through it.
Yeah.
So that's
That's a tough one.
it. It really is, and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm being very open and honest about it.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't, I'm still learning every day. I mean, how do
Mm-hmm.
we do what do we do, right? How do we bring that cohesiveness together? Because obviously after that, our members left, right? Now he pointed finger at him and they pointed finger at him. They were like all this misunderstanding. They were like, oh, I don't want to be just, and bringing all those things. It takes some time for the dust to settle.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you have a great community manager who has great communication, I think you can overcome that. But again, human nature is to get a little bit jealous,
Conflicts.
conflicts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely will keep an eye out for that. I mean, it's going to happen. Just have to have a plan to how do we, tackle it. What's our policy around that?
Right. And I don't think it will always happen. Maybe, it's something, again, maybe it's something we did differently. We should have done something differently. I do not know. Like we are learning. I mean, we are still learning, right?
Yeah.
It's a very new concept. Although there is a booming of co-working spaces in Bangladesh. There are 9 other spaces now in
Nice.
Dhaka. Yeah. So hopefully, I think as more and more opens up, this is going to become a normal, the new normal, which is
Mm-hmm.
co-working, and they
Mm-hmm.
understand that shared economy, sharing of spaces, and this
Yeah.
whole. I think the sense of that we need to share.
Yeah.
It's we need to share. Okay, there might be misunderstanding, so those things will probably work out in
Yeah.
another year or two.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's all I have. But I will tell you, thank you very much for your time. It was lovely talking to you. I learned a lot. My next space, I'm going to do an MVP. Just to have fun. I mean, it's very easy. You can put up a page on Squarespace or Weebly,
Yeah,
run up
exactly. Super
Facebook can
easy. Just
Facebook
do
can
it before you spend like thousands of dollars on it.
or get on that plane and try to find a space. So yes,
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
thank you. Likewise. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.